Hello everybody. This video is going to be about my 2001 Honda XRV 750 Africa Twin, the bike behind me. I got this bike in the middle of June this summer. I was scrolling through Finn.no, the Norwegian Craigslist, and I saw this ad for this bike. 4 years ago I bought my first adventure bike. It was a CRF 1000 Africa Twin, and I really fell in love with that bike. I've ridden around 35,000 kilometers on it now. So I started wondering what the fuss was all about with the good old XRV. I guessed that it might be a really good bike, and I decided to have a look at the bike that was for sale in Harstad. So I went there and looked at it, and it was kind of bruised and battered and needed some love, but it was up for sale for 2,000 euros, and I figured it was a good buy. So a few days later I went to Harstad and picked up the bike. The tires were dry rotted. I could see the steel cords between the knobs in the tire. The chain and sprockets were completely worn out. The steering stem bearing was pinching in the middle, so it was kind of bad to ride. And also the second gear had a knocking sound when you accelerated. Some people said that this could come from the chain and the sprocket being all worn out, but after I test rode it, I kind of figured out that that was not the case. So I rode the bike back home, 50 kilometers to where I live, and after just a few kilometers I understood what the fuss was all about. This bike is so confident, inspiring. I can understand why people have been riding all around the world on this bike. So when I got back home, I started ordering parts, which was new tires, tubes, rim bands, wheel bearings, front and rear, steering stem bearings, a new speedometer drive because the speedometer didn't work. I also ordered a new regulator and some new breaker points for the fuel pump. The bike at this time had 63,000 kilometers on the clocks, so I figured it was smart to have a look at the fuel pump because it's a weak link. The second gear was not available from Honda or any other dealers, so that was an issue. I started Googling and I found this guy in England who had the same problem, and he went to a machine shop and had them machine 10 sets of gears, both for the counter shaft and the main shaft. And I got in touch with them, and they had a few gears left, luckily. So I ordered them. The price was kind of stiff though, around 700 euros, but I needed them. I also ordered a complete gasket kit from eBay, actually.
Muffler, I bought this off eBay.
and I also ordered a new output shaft bearing together with all the oil seals for the engine. I did not order a new output shaft because it was in a fairly good state. Some people will probably wonder why I didn't replace piston rings, other bearings, etc. But since the bike only had 63,000 kilometers and it didn't burn any oil, no bad sounds, no nothing, why should I replace parts that are totally fine? And if this engine is as reliable as they say, I want to let it be it. I don't want to replace parts unnecessary. The following weeks parts started to arrive and I replaced everything except for the second gear. So I actually rode the bike around even though it was knocking in second gear. In the middle of July my vacation started and the gear still hadn't arrived. So I went on a vacation on the CRF 1000. I went down in southern Norway and I went to Dønna, Røros, also visited my brother in Oslo. I went to Arendal, Lysebotn, Rjukan. Had a great trip around 5,000 kilometers. And while I was away, I checked the tracking on the package and the sprockets had arrived back home. So I was really eager to get back home and start to wrench on the bike. I came home from my trip Sunday evening and Monday morning I started tearing the bike apart. By the end of the day I had the engine out and also had torn it apart on the bench. And I could see what the problem was. The second gear had some pittings on it, on 2-3 teeth, and that was enough to cause this knocking sound. Getting the engine out of the frame was a little tricky, so I saw that if I just removed the stator cover and the flywheel, it would be much easier to swing it out. So I did that. I had a crane available, so that made it much easier. So on Tuesday I started pulling the axles apart and replacing the gears, and I also cleaned all the parts, of course, and by the end of the day I had the engine back together, adjusted the valves and everything. I also got it back in the frame in the bike. On Wednesday morning I started off by completing putting the bike back together, and I also replaced the regulator, and of course I removed the stock connections and soldered the wires together. I also took the fuel pump off and replaced the breaker points, actually very easy. And at around 2 o'clock I was ready to start it for the first time, and it fired right up. Sounded good, but it had a slight hesitation that I just couldn't figure out. But I took it for a little test ride Wednesday evening, and the bike actually stalled on me and quit on me several times. I realized that it was a fuel starvation problem, so in case the fuel pump wasn't working, I was actually bringing some extra gas so that I could keep the tank full all the time, because then it will run even without the pump. I got back home and I realized that the pump was getting warm. So probably there was a short circuit somewhere in the pump, so that the coils in the pump were getting power. So Thursday morning I went back to the shop and took the pump apart and inspected it. I couldn't see anything wrong. So I just removed it and reinstalled it. And for some reason it now worked totally fine. I did some bench testing, which you can see. And this system, the pump is pressure sensitive. So it will run when the pressure drops in the line, and when the pressure increases, it stops. I didn't take it on any test ride. I just said to myself, it's working. So Thursday around lunchtime, I took the bike home. I rode the bike home, and the weather was actually pretty bad. It was raining heavily. But I had decided to go to the North Cape, so I just put on the rain gear and packed some stuff and off I went. The first few miles was kind of exciting because I didn't know if it was going to work. But since the fuel pump was working, I thought, what the heck. And I rode to Bjerkvik and stopped there to have the famous hamburger, the Bjerkviking. So I finished my meal and I continued up to Olderdal, where I got an Airbnb. They had a jacuzzi, so it had been some long days and I was wet, and I thought a jacuzzi would be just perfect. So that was really nice. And the following day I started off by checking the chain tension, adjusting it a little bit, and then I started the rest of the trip to North Cape. There were some mild rain showers in the morning, but eventually the weather cleared up and it was just amazing. And the road and the ride up to North Cape is it's amazing in good weather. I really recommend it. So I was at North Cape 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and after hanging around there for an hour, I went back to Alta. I spent the night at a hotel. The following day I decided to try the Gargiaveien, the old post road from Alta to Kautokeino, which I had read that it was a nice road. So I started off at 8 o'clock in the morning and headed for the Gargiaveien, Gargia road. It was really, really beautiful, amazing. And I was all alone. I couldn't see anyone. Or I met one guy with a Tenere 700. That's the only vehicle I met on that pass. So it was amazing.
So here I am at the Gargia Road. Right now I'm so happy because the bike has been running perfectly, and I had a great ride up to the North Cape yesterday. The weather is just the same today as yesterday, and it seems like I'm out here all alone. Right now I'm on the first stretch of the old post road, which is around 40 kilometers to where it crosses the new E45 main road. And from that point it's around 50 more kilometers of dirt roads down to Kautokeino. This whole stretch was a part of the Norwegian TET, the Trans-European Trail, which is a network of dirt roads made by bikers for bikers, so that if you want to ride strictly dirt or gravel, you can ride as much as possible on these roads legally. Some time ago they removed the last part of the old post road from the TET. I guess it was because of the condition the road was in. As you can see, there are some water holes, and there were lots of them, and it was hard to judge how deep they were. And as you can see, I'm taking it really slow because I'm all alone and I don't want to be stranded here somehow and in need of assistance. Some years ago there was a serious accident on the last part of this road actually, where a Norwegian guy named Kenneth rode straight into a river where it was supposed to have been a bridge, but the bridge had fallen down and it hadn't been replaced. He was riding together with his girlfriend Pia, and they were supposed to go on a big journey where they had sold everything they owned, and was supposed to ride from the North Cape and down to South Cape or Cape Town. And they planned to be on the road for years, but then the accident changed the whole plan. So Kenneth was badly injured and had to be picked up by a helicopter. And I actually heard about this story some time ago when I was back home painting my house, and I was listening to a podcast on NRK radio named SOS Nødtelefon. And they had made an episode about this crash. And later on that year I was stuck at home with COVID, and I was watching YouTube, and suddenly I was watching the same story that I heard on the radio, and that was really strange, and it really made an impact on me. Kenneth was badly hurt, and luckily Pia was there to call the rescue services, and he was picked up by a helicopter. And he got some damages or injuries in his stomach and spent several months in hospital. So all their plans changed, and they were supposed to just be out riding for years and live off the YouTube revenues and savings, because Kenneth runs a YouTube channel named Ride the Bean, which I really recommend. It's a great channel, and you risk being stuck at the TV for hours when you first start watching. This summer I was at a motorcycle meeting in Harstad, and I was so lucky to meet up with Kenneth and have a little chat with him, and that was really cool. And he also gave me a Ride the Bean sticker to put on my bike. Now I'm coming to the place where they crashed, and as you can see to the right, it's a deep trench, or what you can call it, where there was supposed to be a bridge. So this video became kind of messy with a combination of photos and videos. That was not the plan, of course. I did shoot some footage when I rode up to the North Cape, but accidentally I lost the memory card, so that's all gone, which is a shame. I was also a little in doubt whether I should make a movie out of this or not, so I feel that it became kind of half-hearted somehow, but well. So back in the old days, some 25 years ago, I was riding my mopeds and dirt bikes, and I also made some videos of that I uploaded to my website so that people could download it. And this was before YouTube came around, so it was pretty much hassle to do that, to make a website, and you had to get your own server and stuff. So nowadays it seems to be much easier, but I've been missing being able to share my motorcycle stuff, so I wanted to try to get back into it. So I bought some used old GoPros and a used drone, and actually a used PC, because I wanted to make it a low budget thing just to see if the interest was still there, and I think it's really fun. So I've been using this video to getting to know the new video editor I'm using, which is Adobe Premiere Pro. So it's quite a mess because I've used this as a learning session, so yeah, that's what it is. So now I've decided to upgrade the equipment a little. I did want to make a more thorough video of the dismantling of the engine and the part where I replaced the second gear, but for different reasons I was not able to film that because I was doing it where I work. I work as an engine technician on boats, and I have been wrenching since I was 10 years old. I got my first moped when I was 8, which was a Honda PX50, a little scooter that I really love. I did put a big bore cylinder kit on it when I was 12, and I also gave it some fresh paint, and after a while it also got some new crank bearings and a new crank, even though it probably wasn't necessary, but I just wanted to wrench on it. And that moped got a lot of abuse from both me and my sister, and also all of the neighbor kids, because everybody got to ride it. And also my cousins that live in south of Norway, they came up to northern Norway to have a summer vacation, and they always looked forward to riding the PX. So that was a fun little machine that just kept on running and never let us down. But as the time went by, the PX was very little used, and I moved away, and it ended up sitting outside for some time, and eventually the engine got stuck and all the chrome was full of rust, and it was really in a bad state. So when we sold our parents' house, we ended up just trashing it, because it would take and cost a lot of money to bring it back to its glory days. So we just trashed it, and some months later I came across a PX on the Finn.no that was in mint condition. So it was pretty expensive, but I just had to have it. So now it's sitting in my garage, and I ride around on it in the summertime. So that's really cool. I'm going to make a video where I talk about all my previous mopeds and dirt bikes and motorcycles. I have been on the North Cape with 2 other bikes before this time, and the first time was on a Kawasaki C1000, a 2003 model, and after that I went on the CRF 1000. And some of you may wonder how far of a drive I have up to the North Cape, and it's around 750 kilometers, so it's not that far. I realized that it's very annoying having to look through the windscreen on the bike, so I'm sorry for that. Now I'm getting closer to the end of the Gargia road, and as you can see, the landscape is kind of boring, but I just wanted to let you know, or let you see how it looks. So after 90 kilometers of pretty bad road conditions, I'm ready for some tarmac now.
Oi, 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 oi.
So it's time to get back home, and I decided to try a different route back home, riding through Finland. And as you can see, the roads are pretty straight and really boring. So that was maybe not the plan, but I guess I should have known this. But it's actually my very first time in another country on a motorcycle, which is a huge shame, but that's the way it is. I've never even been into Sweden before, even though it's just half an hour drive from where I live. But once again, the roads are much more straight and boring there. So actually Norway is a great motorcycle country in that way.
Right now it's in the middle of November, and basically the ground should be covered in snow now, but it isn't. So I'm out taking a little ride on the good old Queen here. It will probably be the last ride. Yesterday when I was out, the roads started getting slippery, so it's getting close to the end. So I really hope you enjoy this video, and if you do, please like and subscribe.